Yo, what is going on, you bug-eyed Burmy? Today I'm coming at you with my Phantasmal Flames set review and buy list. The new cards are coming out in just a couple weeks. And speaking of new cards, if y'all ever need any Pokemon TCG sealed products or singles, then the Card Colosseum has got you covered over at pkmandcolosseum.com. A link, of course, will be in the description, and code AzulGG will get you a discount over there as well. So the first card we're going to talk about here is, before I talk about the Mega Heracross, it did make its way onto my buy list. And I know some of y'all are probably questioning my judgment hearing that. But let's talk about this Ludicolo first, because it kind of all ties together. This Ludicolo says, once in your turn, if you have a Grass Mega Pokemon EX in play, you may heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. Now that's cool, but hold up. There's more to talk about with Ludicolo, and that's because there's this Ludicolo, which has all of your Pokemon in play get plus 40 HP. The effect of Vibrant Dance doesn't stack. So that is a lot of value potentially from a single evolution line. And on top of that, Vitality Forced, of course, is a legal card in the format. So Ludicolo made its way onto my buy list as a 4/4/4, and then I also put the other Ludicolo on my buy list as a 2 of, because most people, I assume, most of you do not have this Ludicolo, so I put this on my buy list as a 2 of as well. So that's like a lot of value to gain from a single evolution line. Plus 40 HP to your Pokemon, and then heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. Like, imagine if you set up a board state of like 3 Ludicolos, 2 of these that are healing 120 damage from one of your Pokemon during your turn, and then the other one giving your other Pokemon, your other Pokemon plus 40 HP. Like, that just seems kind of good. Now, I don't know exactly the best way to use the Ludicolos. I talked about this Ludicolo in the past as a way to maybe make some kind of like tank Venusaur deck where you just like set up one Mega Venusaur, slap a Hero's Cape on it, maybe you play the other Ludicolo, and then use this Ludicolo to just kind of heal it infinitely. Or you could play it more aggressively with something like a Mega Heracross EX. That's 280 HP. You put a Bravery Charm on that, we're looking at 330 HP. You get the other Ludicolo in play, we're looking at 370 HP with the potential to heal up to 180 damage per turn through the other 3 Ludicolos. You're probably not setting up all those other Ludicolos, so 60 to 120 damage. I don't know. I feel like there's something there with this Ludicolo combo lineup. It's not just about this Ludicolo, it's about the other one as well, and I think there's something there with that. So, Mega Heracross EX made its way into my list as a 2 of. It's got the Panzerhorn for 2 grass energy. If this Pokemon was damaged by an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does that much more damage. And that's a big part of this deck as well, with specifically Mega Heracross. If we go like a Mega Venusaur route, we probably don't play Mega Heracross. But if we have Mega Heracross, it's got the Panzerhorn, it does 100 damage. Now, if our opponent doesn't hit our Mega Heracross very hard, then we can maybe heal all the damage they deal with Excited Healing. But if they hit us really hard, we can hit them really hard back with the Panzerhorn. And then it's for 3 grass energy, the Mountain Thrust, 170, discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. Put a little pressure on them. I don't know. At first, when I read this card, I didn't think too much of it. But once you get the Ludicolo lines involved, there could be something here with the Mega Heracross EX. I'm actually excited to try it out. So Mega Heracross EX on the buy list as a 2 of. And then the Ludicolo line is, or Mega Heracross on the buy list as a 3 of. And the Ludicolo line is a 4/4/4. And then I put 2 of the other Ludicolo on the BIOS as well. Speaking of grass Pokemon, though, we got the Genesect here, the Bug Cannon. This card is super sick, especially in probably like a style of Meganium deck similar to the one I released on the channel with like the Wo-Chien and the one that like the Ogerpon Meganium deck. You aggressively draw through your deck. You got Wo-Chien as a late game attacker. This would be a really good early game attacker in the Ogerpon Meganium E-Switch deck. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon. This attack does 20 damage for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon for a single grass energy. That means if you have 2 grass energy on this Genesect, we are sniping our opponent's bench Pokemon for 80 damage, which is a lot on turn 2 in the early game. If you're carrying all of their setup Pokemon, the Dreepies, the Charmanders, the Pidgeys, the Duskulls, there's more, the Ralts. And then by turn 3, we can be doing 120 damage to our opponent's bench Pokemon. So you're KOing the Curlias, the Charmeleons. Like, this just seems really, really powerful in Meganium decks. This Genesect is definitely sick. So it's a 2 of on the buy list. Up next, we got the Charizard line. Now, the one thing to question about the Mega Charizard X EX is how good will this card be after rotation? Because pre-rotation, I think Charizard EX still outclasses this card in terms of, I don't know, big Pokemon that hit hard. In terms of Charizard, like if you're going to play a Charizard, you're playing the other Charizard. If you're going to play a one-hit KO deck, you're playing Golden Go, you're playing Ceruledge. Like, this card is just kind of outclassed currently, but once rotation hits, Golden Go rotates, Charizard EX rotates. There might be a moment for this card for sure. So, Mega Charizard X EX made its way onto my buy list as a 3 of, but pre-rotation, at most, you'll probably be playing it as a 1 of in Charizard EX decks. And then, of course, the Charmander 80 HP. It's got the nimble ability. All the other Charmanders actually rotate with rotation. So this Charmander and this Charmeleon both made its way into my buy list as a 4-of. Actually, I don't know if we need 4 Charmeleon on the buy. It's on a 4. It says a 4-up. Steady Fire Breathing, 110 HP. This Charmeleon is actually sick in every Charizard deck. But pre-rotation, you're probably still playing 70 HP Charmanders because of Buddy Poffin. So this is kind of like a preemptive for post-rotation more so than anything. Although I could see you running like 1 80 HP Charmander to kind of like have that option against Dragapult decks in the late game. Like the reason people play the 80 HP Hoot Hoots or the 80 HP Charcadets is to play around the Phantom Dive plus Hawlucha combo, and this does play around that as well. And it also gives you another free retreat option or an easy retreat option into your Tatsugiri in the early game, which is a pretty big deal to actually play the game sometimes and get a supporter for turn off your Tatsugiri. So that's kind of cool as well with this Charmander. So it's like another thing. Another reason to maybe play it before rotation hits. Moltres, super powerful card, super efficient card, 1 prizer here. 120 HP for a single fire, 110 damage. KO's Ogerpon, can hit Cornerstone Ogerpon for a single fire energy. Can KO Genesect EX, like super good card, 2 of on the buy list. No questions asked. Up next, we have the Oricorio EX. This made its way onto my buy list as a 2 of. I don't think you would ever play more than 2 of these in any Charizard X EX deck. As often as you like during your turn. If you have any Fire Mega Evolution Pokemon EX in play, you may use this ability, attach a basic Fire Energy card from your hand to one of your benched Fire Pokemon. I actually didn't realize, well, I realize this now. I didn't realize when it says Mega Evolution Pokemon EX, it's not talking about an evolved Mega Evolution Pokemon EX. Like, this is a Mega Evolution Pokemon EX. So, like, if there's a good basic Fire Mega Evolution Pokemon EX in format, Oricorio will be able to... Is there any basic Mega Evolution EX Pokemon right now? No. There's like Camerupt, which is stage 1. And then... I'm honestly drawing a blank on the other ones. There's Camerupt, though. I remember Camerupt. But in the future, when more Fire Megas come out, Charizard might not even be the best partner for the Oricorio EX. This could actually go with other stuff. And actually, speaking of potential partners for the Oricorio, especially if we have an easier Pokemon to set up, an easier Mega, Fire Mega Pokemon to get into play, whether that be Camerupt or some basic Fire Mega in the future. Is there like a basic Fire Mega that's legal right now? Now I'm like second guessing whether or not there is. And now I'm going to go check real fast because like this has got me like thinking about potentials for this card. There was none in the last set, right? No, there was not one in the last set. I was correct. But this Reshiram is actually pretty good. It's very expensive energy cost here. 4 fire energy, but then it does 240 damage. And it doesn't discard the energy. It just does 60 damage to itself. And that's a pretty big deal. Usually when these super high damage, high energy cost Pokemon attack, especially when they're basic Pokemon, most of the time I feel like they're discarding the energy from themselves. But we're not. We get to keep our energy. We just do 60 damage to ourselves. And obviously the Reshiram is easy to KO, but it's probably not going to be the target your opponent wants to go after. Doing 240 damage means this Reshiram can prize trade into 2 prize Pokemon, KO stuff like Pheasantipity, or 2 prize trade into something like a Stage 2 EX or Stage 2 Mega Pokemon or Stage 1 Mega Pokemon pretty easily, and it's only a 1 prize Pokemon. So your opponent usually wants to go after your setup Pokemon if you play this with Emboar, or if you play this with Oricorio EX, or if you just have Pheasantipity on your bench. Your opponent doesn't want to KO your Reshiram. They want to gust around your Reshiram and KO a Pokemon off your bench, but then you're not respecting this fully set up Reshiram that's doing 240 damage. I don't know. I really like this card, actually. I think this card seems pretty powerful. Like I said, if we get a easier to get into play Mega Evolution Pokemon EX, that'll make it easier for Oricorio to set up stuff like the Reshiram, and that's just not bad. Even with what's it called? I just said the name. Pignite, not Pignite, the big one. Emboar. Even with Emboar, this Reshiram actually seems pretty good. I don't know. I'm a big fan of this Reshiram, so it did make its way onto my buy list as a 2 of. So I got 2 of the Reshiram on the buy list, 2 of the Oricorio on the buy list, 4 of the Charcadet on the buy list with the Gather Power. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards, reveal them and put them to your hand, then shuffle your deck. It does have 70 HP. We already have a 70 HP Charcadet in the format. This one does have 2 retreat costs, though, and that's kind of the drawback of this Charcadet. The attack is really good. The retreat cost kind of sucks. The HP is less than 80. We do have 80 HP Charcadets in the format that do have 2 retreat cost already, or they have two retreat costs. So if we're going to play a 2 retreat cost Charcadet, maybe we should just play with 80 HP. There is a Charcadet that's attack for a single colorless or fire energy, searches your deck for a fire energy and attaches it to itself, and then you could retreat it to get those energy in the discard pile. And that might just be better at that point. If you're going to play a Charcadet with an attack that gets energy effectively into play, might as well play that one because it also has 80 HP possibly. There is this Ceruledge here. Now, for Ceruledge EX decks specifically, this is actually not great for how they're currently built, because current Ceruledge EX decks are taking advantage of the super powerful Soul Rock and Lunatone combo for draw power and early game attacking options. This Ceruledge does 220 damage for a single fire energy. That is very efficient, but the effect of the attack says we have to discard 4 basic fire energy cards from our hand in order to use this attack. That's the big drawback, especially when we're talking about playing it with Ceruledge EX, because Ceruledge EX decks right now usually only play like 6 to 7 fire energy. That is not like the main basic energy we play in the deck anymore. We're usually playing a way more basic fighting energy because that's the fuel for the draw power of Soul Rock and Lunatone. And I don't think we want to change that count of energy just to include this card in our deck, but maybe, probably not. But I still put this on the buy list as a one of, because I could see Ceruledge EX decks changing in the future around this, basing on trying to include this as a tech card in the deck. Also, Charcadets and Ceruledges are going to be around for a while, so in the future, who knows what else comes out that might make this a better card to include in your deck as well. All right, keep going on here. Rotom EX here, I'll mention it real fast. 190 HP, multi-adapter. Your Pokemon with Rotom in their name can have up to 2 tool cards attached to them. And there is, of course, the tool drop, Rotoms in the format. This is obviously trying to synergize with those, but I don't think it's good. So it didn't make its way onto the buy list, but will be a cool deck to make nonetheless and play around with. Got the Miss Magus EX here as well. Also did not make its way into the buy list, 260 HP. Swirling Spell, if this Pokemon's in the active spot when your opponent switches their new active in... Wait. When your opponent switches in a new active Pokemon, excuse me, it is now confused. 6 magic, psychic, 7 magic, 150. You may draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. Just not a lot of damage. You're basically living off the confusion of the ability to be able to do anything. Yeah, this card, it just kind of stinks, to be honest. I got the Zacian here. I actually think the Zacian is pretty decent. It's got the Limit Breaker attack for a Psychic and a Colorless. 50 damage. If your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, this attack does 90 more damage. So 140 damage, especially if it's up against something that's weak to Psychic. This is actually pretty decent. So I put it on the buy list as a one of. The Tauros, I don't think this card is good. I actually thought this card was currently legal in the standard format. I didn't realize that this card had not come out yet. Raging Charge for a single fight energy. This attack does 40 damage for each of your Pokemon with Tauros in its name that has any damage counters on them. For a single fighting, that makes a pretty efficient attack, possibly, but it's just not good enough. At max, we're hitting for 240 damage. Yeah, I don't think this is quite it. I mean, it's a basic Pokemon attacking, but your bench has to be full of Tauros, which means you have no draw support on your field. So yeah, I don't see a competitive future for probably on Tauros, but once again, could make a cool meme deck there, for sure. Up next, we got the Dark Pokemon. A lot of these did make its way onto the buy list, of course. First, we have the Weavile here. This one did not make its way onto the buy list, actually, but I do think it'll be a cool one prize deck. Nonetheless, the Claws of Retribution here for 2 dark energy. It does 20 damage plus 170 more damage if this Pokemon has 50 HP or less. And of course, we're accelerating energy to it to attack with it, as well as get the damage on it with the Toxtricity. It's got that bad upper ability. Once on your turn, you may search your deck for a basic dark energy attached to one of your bench dark Pokemon. If you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So Toxtricity made its way into the buy list as a 4/4, 4 Toxel, 4 Toxtricity. The Weavile and the Sneasel did not make their way onto the buy list, but some other Pokemon, dark Pokemon did. We got this Viper here, which seems like a decent inclusion in potentially like a dark box Toxtricity style deck. If you have a dark Mega Pokemon EX in play, this Pokemon's attacks do 120 more damage to your opponent's Pokemon, so that's 240 damage for 3 dark energy. Of course, we have Toxtricity, accelerating energy, so getting to the 3 energy shouldn't be that big of a deal, and that is a decent amount of damage for a one-prize Pokemon, so that's not terrible. It's nothing crazy, though, but the Sharpedo might be crazy. We got the Mega Sharpedo EX here, 330 HP, pretty decent for a stage 1. Greedy Fang, 70 damage, draw 2 cards for a single dark. That's not bad. For 2 dark energy, Angry Jaws, 120 damage. If you have any damage counters on this Pokemon, this attack does 150 more damage. It has 270 damage, which it does come up a little bit short on the bigger EX Pokemon. The Charizards, the Dragapults, Maximum Belt fixes a lot of that damage, and because we are going to be playing a deck with dark energy, that does put damage into play, because Toxtricity will be accelerating energy onto our Pokemon and then putting damage on them. We can also play Monkey Dory, which also will solve some of our damage problems for the Mega Sharpedo EX. So I definitely think there is potential for Mega Sharpedo EX, because it'll be a Monkey Dory deck. And I don't know, Monkey Dory decks generally on average are better than other decks. So I'm holding out some hope for Mega Sharpedo. I got it as a 4/3 on the buy list. Like I mentioned, 4/4 Toxtricity. Empoleon EX did not make its way onto the buy list. Usually when the cards, I don't know, this card is just kind of bad. Like, its stats aren't even that high. 320 HP on a stage 2 EX, that's normal. Prevent all effects done to this Pokemon by attacks from opponent's Pokemon, who cares? And then Iron Phaser, 210 damage for 2 metal and a colorless. During opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 60 less damage from attacks. I'm just not buying it. I do not think the Empoleon EX is any good, unfortunately. Got the Duraludon or Archaludon here, which did make its way onto the buy list as potential tech cards to just include in an Archaludon deck. The Duraludon here for 3 metal energy, Hyper Beam does 70 damage, discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Now, it's going to be tough to beat the other Duraludon as an inclusion in an Archaludon deck with the Raging Hammer. This attack does 10 more damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. We got the Relicanth, of course, so Archaludon will be able to gain access to the Duraludon attacks, but I could see this one being included as like a 1 of or 2 of. I did put it on the buy list as a 4 of, because in the future I could just see you switching to fully 4 of these. There could be matchups where doing 70 damage sets up for a 2-hit KO effectively, and then discarding your opponent's energy is just super powerful in the moment. Like, specifically up against, I don't know, maybe Dragapult potentially, right? Like, if they attack, they're not going to attack. They could attack into you because you're not behind the outrage Duraludon anymore. But maybe being aggressive with Hyper Beam in that matchup, or another matchup where it's like effectively 2-hit KOs your opponent anyway, but discarding their energy is really powerful. But I mean, you don't want to be attacking with the Duraludon, so you want to be an Archaludon, you know, to be used through Relicanth. So I could definitely see this being played in an Archaludon deck. Same with this Archaludon, of course, with the coded attack for 3 metal, 120. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon can't be damaged by attacks from your opponent's basic Pokemon. It's a pretty good attack option to have. I could see it. I could see it for sure. So this is on the buy list as a 1 of, and this is on there as a 4 of. Moving along here. The Linoon did not make its way into my buy list. I don't think this card is very good. Too much is required to set this up, and you're not going to be able to really get that much value out of this anyways, I don't think. So yeah, the Linoon did not make its way into my buy list. If this Pokemon is on your bench and you have a Mega Pokemon EX in play, you may use this ability, switch this Pokemon with your active Pokemon. So the Mega Pokemon that you have in play doesn't have to be involved at all with the switching around. It's just, if you have a Mega in play, you can put Linoon in your active, moving your active Pokemon, but I just don't know. I mean, obviously it combos with Mega Lopunny here, but Mega Lopunny, whatever. But I don't think Mega Lopunny is, like, you don't need that to make Mega Lopunny work. But Mega Lopunny is pretty good, I think, as like a tech card. We've been seeing this be played a lot as like a 1/1 in like Golden Go and Charizard, because its Gale Thrust attack does 60 damage plus 170 more damage if it was on your bench during this turn. For a single colorless energy, that's enough damage to KO Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, which both of those decks struggle with. So this is kind of an answer to Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon, and it's just not bad. I mean, that damage KO stuff like Vezendipity, Grass Ogerpon, basically 2-hit KOs anything in the format. The Spike Hopper attack as well for 2 colorless energy. This attack's damage isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon, so you can KO stuff like Crustle with the Spike Hopper attack. So just kind of a do-it-all, solve the problems for some decks type card. So a 2/2 Mega Lopunny made its way onto the buy list. And now we're getting into the trainer cards. And I've said this, for trainer cards on buy list, I always put them on the buy list as a 4 of. Up first, we got the Jumbo Ice Cream. This card is insanely good. This card is so good. I'm actually kind of, maybe I'm a little scared. I'm very curious to see what decks are going to be made around this card when it drops, and what the future holds for this card as well. Heal 80 damage from your active Pokemon that has 3 or more energy attached. That's just a lot of damage to heal. You can already think of a bunch of different decks that you could include this in that would be heavily impactful in. Archaludon, the Absol decks, Mega Absol decks, not Dragapult, not Charizard, not Gardevoir. Those are pretty good decks, but they're not going to be using the Jumbo Ice Cream. Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Absol, Archaludon. Maybe I'm actually out of... Oh, there's been like a Control Pidgeot deck that plays like 4 of these as well. I don't know. There's a lot of things. This card is very, very good. I'm excited to see what's done with it. I don't think it'll be like broken or anything like that. Stuff like Mega Venusaur could even take advantage of this, like that Ludicolo deck that I talked about earlier. You could play these in there as well for more aggressive healing. Definitely a lot of options. Hydreigon EX as well. We got the Heat Burner here. You must discard 1 basic fire energy from your hand in order to play this card. Choose a Pokemon tool, special energy, or stadium card from your opponent. Their opponent has in play, and discard it. Solid card. The Sacred Charm. The Pokemon this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon that have an ability. Then we got the Grimsley's Move. Grimsley's Move actually did not make its way into my buy list. I just don't think this card is that good. And I haven't been able to come up with anything that I think is that powerful. Maybe there's something way in the future, but like currently, I don't think there's anything that makes this card competitive, and I don't expect it to ever become competitive. And that's how I do my buy lists, is these are cards that might not be competitive immediately on release, but I think they have potential in the future. And Grimsley, I don't think has that potential. Look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose a dark Pokemon you find there, and put it onto your bench, shuffle the other cards face down, and put them on the bottom of your deck. Yeah, I just don't think Grimsley's got it. Dawn here, a card that I definitely think is going to be very competitive. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon, Stage 1 evolution, and a Stage 2 evolution, reveal them, and put them to your hand. Insanely powerful Pokemon search supporter. Maybe is it the most powerful ever? It might be. We got Fire Breather here. Search your deck for up to 7 basic fire energies, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. This made its way into the buy list. Even if it's not good with Charizard X EX, this is just an insane amount of value to get from playing a card. Getting 7 cards off of playing a card is insane. That is so many cards to get from a card. Just the amount of cards for a card that you're getting there is so high. Now, it's just basic energy, but even then, still pretty good. Battle Colosseum here, prevent all damage counters from being placed on bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponents, by the effects of attacks or abilities used by your opponent's Pokemon. Pretty good stadium. 4 on the buy list. Vertigo, no. Up next, we got a couple more cards down here. They're just kind of spaced out a little bit separately on this on Pokemon Proxy. So gonna go through theirs. Mega Diancie is a 2 on the buy list. 270 HP, Diamond Coat, take 30 less damage from attacks, and then Garland Ray for 2 Psychic. Discard up to 2 energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 120 for each energy discarded in this way. It's already seen a lot of play in Gardevoir, of course, but I could see a future for this card outside of Gardevoir as well. Wonder Patch, of course, 4 on the buy list. Attach Psychic energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Psychic Pokemon. And then finally, the Dark Pokemon. I do not think Mega Gengar EX will be competitive, so it did not make its way into the buy list, but there's definitely a bunch of cool, fun decks to play with it. 350 HP. When one of your Dark Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, that is an EX, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize cards. And then the attack's not bad either. Void Gale for 2 Dark, 230. Move an energy from this Pokemon to one of your benched Pokemon. Finally, we got the Sableye here. The Angry Claw did make its way onto my buy list, actually. For a single Dark Energy, if you have a Stage 2 Dark Pokemon in play, this attack does 70 more damage, so 90 damage total. That's not bad. You could even play this in something like a Grimmsnarl deck when you don't want to leave a Grimmsnarl in your active, but you do want to pressure your opponent with something. And then finally, the Punk Helmet also made its way onto the buy list if the Dark Pokemon this tool is attached to is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon. Put 4 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So I could see this being good. I could even see this being good pretty soon in something like Grimmsnarl. That's like a lot of extra damage to like get into play on your opponent's side of the field for something like a Grimmsnarl deck that is so spread heavy through the Frostlass and the Monkey Dories, and then has a lot of potential through TM Devolution as well. So yeah, I could see this even be used in Grimmsnarl almost immediately on release, to be honest. And that's it. That's all of cards from Phantasmal Flames. That's my set review. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Is there anything that I didn't put on the buy list that I should have? Is there any obvious combos that I missed with any of the cards that I talked about? Let me know, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.